80% of believers who experience a profound spiritual breakthrough admit they felt completely cursed by God just moments before they realized He was actually leading them. Why does the path to divine destiny always look like a wreckage from the outside? Could it be that the silence you are hearing right now is not the absence of God, but the absolute precision of His guidance? We often buy into the dangerous illusion that a life with God is a continuous highway of comfort and immediate success. But that is a sugar-coated trap that sets you up for an inevitable faith bankruptcy. 3 years ago, on a freezing winter night, I found myself kneeling on a cold bathroom floor, staring at a screen that showed a completely drained bank account. A major project that I had poured my life savings into had just collapsed into dust right after a long season of fasting and intense prayer. I remember the exact taste of bitterness in my mouth as I looked up at the ceiling and felt an overwhelming wave of self-doubt. I asked myself if I had completely misheard the voice of God, or if He was actively punishing me for some hidden flaw. It is easy to trust a compass when the weather is clear, but when the storm hits, you begin to suspect the needle is broken. That brokenness was not my destruction, but the violent stripping away of my naive expectations, because God does not lead you by coddling your ego. He leads you by breaking it. When God begins to lead you, He does not start by handing you a grand crown of victory. He starts with a scalpels and begins a painful surgery on your private life. True biblical alignment is not a state of peaceful floating, but a fierce internal war where your flesh is systematically dismantled. The first sign that you are on His path is the agony of micro-obedience. Suddenly, the compromises that you used to shrug off with a laugh begin to feel like lead weights on your chest. An extra 5 minutes of gossip at the office water cooler leaves a bitter aftertaste in your mouth. A small exaggeration on your tax forms, or a white lie to escape an awkward conversation, starts to keep you awake at 2 in the morning. For a long time, I wrestled with a terrifying wave of self-doubt during this exact phase. I constantly looked at the world around me, where people were cutting corners, cheating their way to the top, and seemingly enjoying their lives without a care. I seriously questioned my own sanity and wondered if I was just becoming mentally fragile or overly fanatical. But then I realized that this acute hypersensitivity is not a psychological weakness, but the undeniable proof of a living spirit. An ancient metallurgist would throw raw gold into a raging furnace and watch the fire boil away the hidden dross. He would never remove the gold from the heat until the liquid surface became so perfectly still and pure that he could clearly see his own face reflected in it. When your conscience feels heavy over minor infractions, it means the divine refiner is staring into your soul, waiting to see His own image. The conviction you are fighting is not the anger of a judge trying to condemn you, but the fierce love of a father, refusing to let you rot in your own comfort. The most brutal realization you will face on this journey is that a closed door is not a gentle redirection. It is a heavy divine lockdown designed to shatter your arrogant self-reliance. We desperately scream at the heavens, begging for a key to open a specific career or a failing relationship because we think we know what is best for us. But God is not a cosmic vending machine that dispenses blessings according to our short-sighted desires. He locks those doors and melts the keys because the road ahead would completely corrupt your calling. I remember weeping bitter tears over a catastrophic business partnership that dissolved overnight and a relationship that walked away without an explanation. At that exact moment, my mind was flooded with a toxic spiral of self-doubt and anger. I convinced myself that I was a complete failure who had crossed a line and was now receiving divine abandonment. But today, as I look back at those closed doors from a higher vantage point, I feel an overwhelming wave of gratitude for that tattered past. Those rejections were not punishments, but a violent rescue mission from a future that would have quietly destroyed my character. Think about the biblical narrative of Joseph, locked away in the pitch-black isolation of an Egyptian dungeon for 2 long years. He did not just sit in a clean, quiet room, meditating on a pleasant future. He sat in the damp, stinking silence of a prison cell, listening to the rattling of chains, and wondering if his dreams were nothing but a cruel joke. That suffocating pressure was not designed to torment him, but to crush the residue of pride and prepare his shoulders to carry the weight of an entire empire. When the pressure in your life becomes heavy and your options are stripped away, do not assume you have been abandoned. The exact same weight that is currently pressing down on you is the very tool being used to forge the strength you will need for the crown ahead. The deeper you walk into this divine alignment, the more you will experience a strange and unsettling isolation from the world around you. This is not a tragic loneliness caused by social awkwardness, but a strategic separation orchestrated by the Creator himself. The fifth sign that God is leading you is that your appetite for worldly validation and superficial pleasures is completely broken. You begin to realize that the achievements that once made your heart race now feel temporary, and the approval of people leaves an empty echo in your soul. For months during this transition, I was paralyzed by an intense wave of self-doubt. As my old social circle began to fade away, I watched my friends gathered together celebrating their fast-paced lives, and I felt like a completely broken gear that no longer fit into the machinery of modern society. I seriously questioned if I was sabotaging my own life and becoming a bitter, eccentric hermit who was hiding behind religious excuses. But the ultimate proof of spiritual life is not your ability to remain flawless, but your total inability to enjoy the mud of your past. When you belong to God, you can still stumble and fall because you are human, but you lose the capacity to find comfort in the darkness. The prodigal son could run away to a distant country and waste his entire inheritance on reckless living, but he could not turn his heart into a pig. Even when he was starving in the filth, his identity as a son forced him to look back at the house of his father. I kept returning to God after every single failure and heartbreak, not because I possessed a powerful iron will or superior holiness. I crawled back to the altar, simply because my soul had tasted something eternal, and the entire world no longer had anything that could satisfy my hunger. The ultimate transformation of your faith happens when you finally stop asking why this heavy storm is happening to you. You must change your internal question and start asking what toxic baggage God is violently removing from you. The painful wilderness you are walking through right now is not a meaningless cosmic detour designed to waste your time. It is the grand training ground where your spiritual muscles are being torn down so they can grow back unbreakable. When you look at your closed doors and your silent nights from this radical new perspective, the entire illusion of fear disappears. You no longer see a punishing hand, but a brilliant architect who is clearing away the shallow sand to lay an unshakable foundation. If you are still standing after the fire, if your heart still hungers for righteousness, despite your deep exhaustion, you have already won. The divine sculptor is not finished with you yet, and every single scar you carry will soon become a testament to his precise leadership. Thank you so much for traveling along this narrow and challenging path with me today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and join our community so we can continue to walk through these desert seasons together.